us is smart people out of all smart people. This is why we smart. And we have knowledge like this. And it scares the fuck. But we must be brave if God sent us. And he said, bless these sons with the immaculate speed and strength, immaculate majesty over them, that protects and guide them on their way and life in journey. Whatever heretic judge before the Almighty pass before. Amen. Look what this.
Chapter 4. Chapter 4, which describes some strange doings in Hammersmith. The article by the Joint Commissioners, such was the glorious title, aroused interest and contention. It had been accompanied by a depreciating leaderette from the sub-editor which was meant to calm the susceptibilities of his orthodox readers, as who should say, these things have to be noticed and seem to be true, but of course you and I recognize how pestilential it all is. Malone found himself at once plunged into a huge correspondence, for and against, which in itself was enough to show how vitally the question was in the minds of men. All the previous articles had only elicited a growl here or there from a hidebound Catholic or from an ironclad evangelical, but now his postbag was full. Most of them were ridiculing the idea that psychic forces existed, and many were from writers who, whatever they might know of psychic forces, had obviously not yet learned to spell. The spiritualists were in many cases not more pleased than the others, for Malone had, even while his account was true, exercised a journalist's privilege of laying an accent on the more humorous sides of it. One morning in the succeeding week Mr. Malone was aware of a large presence in the small room wherein he did his work at the office. A page boy, who preceded the stout visitor, had laid a card on the corner of the table which bore the legend James Bolsover, Provision Merchant, High Street, Hammersmith. It was none other than the genial president of last Sunday's congregation. He wagged the paper accusingly at Malone, but his good-humored face was wreathed in smiles. "Well, well," said he. "I told you that the funny side would get you. Don't you think it a fair account?" "Well, yes, Mr. Malone. I think you and the young woman have done your best for us. But, of course, you know nothing and it all seems queer to you. Come to think of it, it would be a deal queerer if all the clever men who leave this earth could not among them find some way of getting a word back to us. But it's such a stupid word sometimes. Well, there are a lot of stupid people leave the world. They don't change. And then, you know, one never knows what sort of message is needed. We had a clergyman in to see Mrs. Debs yesterday. He was broken-hearted because he had lost his daughter. Mrs. Debs got several messages through that she was happy and that only his grief hurt her. "That's no use," said he. "Anyone could say that. That's not my girl." And then suddenly she said, "But I wish to goodness you would not wear a Roman collar with a colored shirt." That sounded a trivial message, but the man began to cry. "That's her," he sobbed. "She was always chipping me about my collars. It's the little things that count in this life, just the homely, intimate things, Mr. Malone." Malone shook his head. Anyone would remark on a colored shirt and a clerical collar. Mr. Bolsover laughed. "You're a hard proposition. So was I once, so I can't blame you. But I called here with a purpose. I expect you are a busy man and I know that I am, so I'll get down to the brass tacks. First, I wanted to say that all our people that have any sense are pleased with the article. Mr. Algernon Maley wrote me that it would do good, and if he is pleased we are all pleased. Maley the barrister. Maley, the religious reformer. That's how he will be known. Well, what else? Only that we would help you if you and the young lady wanted to go further in the matter. Not for publicity, mind you, but just for your own good, though we don't shrink from publicity, either. I have psychical phenomena seances at my own home without a professional medium, and if you would like, there's nothing I would like so much. Then you shall come, both of you. I don't have many outsiders. I wouldn't have one of those psychic research people inside my doors. Why should I go out of my way to be insulted by all their suspicions and their traps? They seem to think that folk have no feelings. But you have some ordinary common sense. That's all we ask. But I don't believe. Would that not stand in the way? Not in the least. So long as you are fair-minded and don't disturb the conditions, all is well. Spirits out of the body don't like disagreeable people any more than spirits in the body do. Be gentle and civil, same as you would to any other company. Well, I can promise that. They are funny sometimes, said Mr. Bolsover, in reminiscent vein. It is as well to keep on the right side of them. They are not allowed to hurt humans, but we all do things we're not allowed to do, and they are very human themselves. You remember how the Times correspondent got his head cut open with the tambourine in one of the Davenport brothers' seances? Very wrong, of course, but it happened. No friend ever got his head cut open. There was another case down Stepney Way. A money lender went to a seance. Some victim that he had driven to suicide got into the medium. He got the moneylender by the throat and it was a close thing for his life. But I'm off, Mr. Malone. We sit once a week and have done for 4 years without a break. 8 o'clock Thursdays. Give us a day's notice and I'll get Mr. Maley to meet you. He can answer questions better than I. Next Thursday. Very good. And Mr. Bolsover lurched out of the room. Both Malone and Enid Challenger had, perhaps, been more shaken by the short experience than they had admitted, but both were sensible people who agreed that every possible natural cause should be exhausted and very thoroughly exhausted before the bounds of what is possible should be enlarged. Both of them had the utmost respect for the ponderous intellect of Challenger and were affected by his strong views, though Malone was compelled to admit in the frequent arguments in which he was plunged that the opinion of a clever man who has had no experience is really of less value than that of the man in the street who has actually been there. These arguments, as often as not, were with Mervyn, editor of the psychic paper Dawn, which dealt with every phase of the occult, from the lore of the Rosicrucians to the strange regions of the students of the Great Pyramid, or of those who uphold the Jewish origin of our blonde Anglo-Saxons. Mervyn was a small, eager man with a brain of a high order, which might have carried him to the most lucrative heights of his profession had he not determined to sacrifice worldly prospects in order to help what seemed to him to be a great truth. As Malone was eager for knowledge and Mervyn was equally keen to impart it, the waiters at the literary club found it no easy matter to get them away from the corner table in the window at which they were wont to lunch. Looking down at the long, grey curve of the embankment and the noble river with its vista of bridges, the pair would linger over their coffee, smoking cigarettes and discussing various sides of this most gigantic and absorbing subject, which seemed already to have disclosed new horizons to the mind of Malone. There was one warning given by Mervyn which aroused impatience amounting almost to anger in Malone's mind. He had the hereditary Irish objection to coercion, and it seemed to him to be appearing once more in an insidious and particularly objectionable form. "You are going to one of Bolsover's family seances," said Mervyn. "They are, of course, well known among our people, though few have been actually admitted, so you may consider yourself privileged. He has clearly taken a fancy to you. He thought I wrote fairly about them. Well, it wasn't much of an article, but still among the dreary, purblind nonsense that assails us it did show some traces of dignity and balance and sense of proportion." Malone waved a deprecating cigarette. "Bolsover's seances and others like them are, of course, things of no moment to the real psychic. They are like the rude foundations of a building which certainly help to sustain the edifice, but are forgotten when once you come to inhabit it. It is the higher superstructure with which we have to do. You would think that the physical phenomena were the whole subject those and a fringe of ghosts and haunted houses if you were to believe the cheap papers who cater for the sensationalist. Of course, these physical phenomena have a use of their own. They rivet the attention of the inquirer and encourage him to go further. Personally, having seen them all, I would not go across the road to see them again. But I would go across many roads to get high messages from the beyond. Yes, I quite appreciate the distinction, looking at it from your point of view. Personally, of course, I am equally agnostic as to the messages and the phenomena. Quite so. Street. Paul was a good psychic. He makes the point so neatly that even his ignorant translators were unable to disguise the real occult meanings as they have succeeded in doing in so many cases. Can you quote it? I know my New Testament pretty well, but I am not letter perfect. It is the passage where he says that the gift of tongues, which was an obvious sensational thing, was for the uninstructed, but that prophecies, that is real spiritual messages, were for the elect. In other words, that an experienced spiritualist has no need of phenomena. I'll look that passage up. You will find it in Corinthians, I think. By the way, there must have been a pretty high average of intelligence among those old congregations if Paul's letters could have been read aloud to them and thoroughly comprehended. That is generally admitted, is it not? Well, it is a concrete example of it. However, I am down a sidetrack. What I wanted to say to you is that you must not take Bolsover's little spirit circus too seriously. It is honest as far as it goes, but it goes a mighty short way. It's a disease, this phenomena hunting. I know some of our people, women mostly, who buzz around seance rooms continually, seeing the same thing over and over, sometimes real, sometimes, I fear, imitation. What better are they for that as souls or as citizens or in any other way? No. When your foot is firm on the bottom rung, don't mark time on it, but step up to the next rung and get firm upon that. I quite get your point. But I'm still on the solid ground. Solid, cried Mervyn. Good Lord. But the paper goes to press today and I must get down to the printer. With a circulation of 10,000 or so we do things modestly, you know, not like you plutocrats of the daily press. I am practically the staff. You said you had a warning. Yes, I wanted to give you a warning. Mervyn's thin, eager face became intensely serious. If you have any ingrained religious or other prejudices which may cause you to turn down this subject after you have investigated it, then don't investigate at all, for it is dangerous. What do you mean dangerous? They don't mind honest doubt, or honest criticism, but if they are badly treated they are dangerous. Who are they? Who are they? I wonder. Guides, controls, psychic entities of some kind. Who the agents of vengeance, or I should say justice are, is really not essential. The point is that they exist. Oh, rot, Mervyn. Don't be too sure of that. Pernicious rot. These are the old theological bogies of the Middle Ages coming up again. I am surprised at a sensible man like you. Mervyn smiled. He had a whimsical smile, but his eyes, looking out from under bushy yellow brows, were as serious as ever. You may come to change your opinion. There are some queer sides to this question. As a friend I put you wise to this one. Well, put me wise, then. Thus encouraged, Mervyn went into the matter. He rapidly sketched the career and fate of a number of men who had, in his opinion, played an unfair game with these forces, become an obstruction, and suffered for it. He spoke of judges who had given prejudiced decisions against the cause, of journalists who had worked up stunt cases for sensational purposes and to throw discredit on the movement, of others who had interviewed mediums to make game of them, or who, having started to investigate, had drawn back alarmed, and given a negative decision when their inner soul knew that the facts were true. It was a formidable list, for it was long and precise, but Malone was not to be driven. If you pick your cases, I have no doubt one could make such a list about any subject. Mr. Jones said that Raphael was a bungler, and Mr. Jones died of angina pectoris. Therefore it is dangerous to criticize Raphael. That seems to be the argument. Well, if you like to think so. Take the other side. Look at Moorgate. He has always been an enemy, for he is a convinced materialist. But he prospers. Look at his professorship. An honest doubter. Certainly. Why not? And Morgan, who at one time exposed mediums. If they were really fools, he did good service. And Falconer, who has written so bitterly about you. Falconer. Do you know anything of Falconer's private life? No. Well, take it from me, he has got his dues. He doesn't know why. Someday these gentlemen will begin to compare notes, and then it may dawn on them. But they get it. He went on to tell a horrible story of one who had devoted his considerable talents to picking spiritualism to pieces, though really convinced of its truth, because his worldly ends were served thereby. The end was ghastly, too ghastly for Malone. Oh. Cut it out, Mervyn. He cried impatiently. I'll say what I think, no more and no less, and I won't be carried by you or your spooks into altering my opinions. I never asked you to. You got a bit near it. What you have said strikes me as pure superstition. If what you say is true, you should have the police after you. Yes, if we did it. But it is out of our hands. However, Malone, for what it's worth, I have given you the warning and you can now go your way. Bye-bye. You can always ring me up at the office of Dawn. If you want to know if a man is of the true Irish blood, there is one infallible test. Put him in front of a swing door with push or pull printed upon it. The Englishman will obey like a sensible man. The Irishman, with less sense but more individuality, will at once and with vehemence do the opposite. So it was with Malone. Mervyn's well-meant warning simply raised a rebellious spirit within him, and when he called for Enid to take her to the Bolsover séance, he had gone back several degrees in his dawning sympathy for the subject. Challenger bade them farewell with many jibes, his beard projecting forward and his eyes closed with appraised eyebrows, as was his wont when inclined to be facetious. You have your powder bag, my dear Enid. If you see a particularly good specimen of ectoplasm in the course of the evening, don't forget your father. I have a microscope, chemical reagents and everything ready. Perhaps even a small poltergeist might come your way. Any trifle would be welcome. His bull's bellow of laughter followed them into the lift. The provision merchant's establishment of Mr. Bolsover proved to be a euphemism for an old-fashioned grocer's shop in the most crowded part of Hammersmith. The neighboring church was chiming out the 3/4 as the taxi drove up, and the shop was full of people. So Enid and Malone walked up and down outside. As they were so engaged, another taxi drove up, and a large, untidy-looking, ungainly bearded man in a suit of Harris tweed stepped out of it. He glanced at his watch and then began to pace the pavement. Presently he noted the others and came up to them. "May I ask if you are the journalists who are going to attend the séance?" "I thought so. Old Bolsover is terribly busy, so you were wise to wait. Bless him, he is one of God's saints in his way. You are Mr. Algernon Maylie, I presume?" "Yes. I am the gentleman whose credulity is giving rise to considerable anxiety upon the part of my friends, as one of the rags remarked the other day." His laugh was so infectious that the others were bound to laugh also. Certainly, with his athletic proportions, which had run a little to seed but were still notable, and with his virile voice and strong if homely face, he gave no impression of instability. "We are all labeled with some stigma by our opponents," said he. "I wonder what yours will be." "We must not sail under false colors, Mr. Maylie," said Enid. "We are not yet among the believers." "Quite right. You should take your time over it. It is infinitely the most important thing in the world, so it is worth taking time over. I took many years myself. Folk can be blamed for neglecting it, but no one can be blamed for being cautious in examination. Now I am all out for it, as you are aware, because I know it is true. There is such a difference between believing and knowing. I lecture a good deal, but I never want to convert my audience. I don't believe in sudden conversions. They are shallow, superficial things. All I want is to put the thing before the people as clearly as I can. I just tell them the truth and why we know it is the truth. Then my job is done. They can take it or leave it. If they are wise, they will explore along the paths that I indicate. If they are unwise, they miss their chance. I don't want to press them or to proselytize. It's their affair, not mine." "Well, that seems a reasonable view," said Enid, who was attracted by the frank manner of their new acquaintance. They were standing now in the full flood of light cast by Bolsover's big plate glass window. She had a good look at him, his broad forehead, his curious grey eyes, thoughtful and yet eager, his straw-colored beard which indicated the outline of an aggressive chin. He was solidity personified, the very opposite of the fanatic whom she had imagined. His name had been a good deal in the papers lately as a protagonist in the long battle, and she remembered that it had never been mentioned without an answering snort from her father. "I wonder," she said to Malone, "what would happen if Mr. Maylie were locked up in a room with Dad." Malone laughed. There used to be a schoolboy question as to what would occur if an irresistible force were to strike an invincible obstacle. "Oh, you are the daughter of Professor Challenger," said Maylie with interest. "He is a big figure in the scientific world. What a grand world it would be if it would only realize its own limitations." "I don't quite follow you. It is this scientific world which is at the bottom of much of our materialism. It has helped us in comfort if comfort is any use to us. Otherwise it has usually been a curse to us, for it has called itself progress and given us a false impression that we are making progress, whereas we are really drifting very steadily backwards. Really, I can't quite agree with you there, Mr. Maley, said Malone, who was getting restive under what seemed to him dogmatic assertion. Look at wireless. Look at the SOS. Call at sea. Is that not a benefit to mankind? Oh, it works out all right sometimes. I value my electric reading lamp, and that is a product of science. It gives us, as I said before, comfort and occasionally safety. Why, then, do you depreciate it? Because it obscures the vital thing, the object of life. We were not put into this planet in order that we should go 50 miles an hour in a motor car, or cross the Atlantic in an airship, or send messages either with or without wires. These 9. As we find not the remotest allusion to their origin as a distinct class, and as both they and the apostate angels are represented as destined to future torment. The possessed with demons at Gadara cry out, on our Lord's approach, art thou come to torment us before the time, Matt? VIII 29. Whilst our Lord says, delivering the future judgment, depart ye cursed into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels, from which passages it would appear that neither Satan nor the demons are yet enduring the extreme punishment prepared for them. Indeed, the scriptural opinion appears to be that, as the devil walketh about like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour, going to and fro in the earth, walking up and down in it, so his emissaries, the apostate angels, the demons, roam through every part of it, inflicting diseases, tempting to sin, and blasting physical as well as moral good. If it be said that such a supposition is irreconcilable with the power and beneficence of the divine being, will those who make such objection venture to deny the existence of moral and physical evil? And if that be reconcilable with the power and beneficence of the Supreme, why may not the doctrine just laid down? Will it be said that such a supposition is irreconcilable with the immutability and permanency of the divine laws? Will those who make such objection assert that the superficial knowledge they may have acquired of nature's laws warrants them in saying that they understand the divine laws? Who can tell all the causes that lead to any one, even the most insignificant, event? And who can tell but that the laws of nature, without our perceiving it, are controlled by demonic agency? We only see a few of the links, we cannot see all the links of the chain that lead to any one result. It may be proper to examine here the heathen notion of the word demon, by which means, mutatus mutandis, we will be better able to understand its scriptural application. Its etymology conveys the idea either of an acute intelligence or of an appointed agent. But as these may exist separately, in distinct beings, or combined in the same being, it is obvious mere etymology cannot guide us to a safe persons. Chapter 1. Destruction of life. Section 1. Parricide, murder, homicide. Art. 246. Parricide. Any person who shall kill his father, mother, or child, whether legitimate or illegitimate, or any of his ascendants, or descendants, or his spouse, shall be guilty of parricide and shall be punished by the penalty of reclusion perpetua to death. As amended by R.A. No. 7600 death or physical injuries inflicted under exceptional circumstances. Any legally married person who, having surprised his spouse in the act of committing sexual intercourse with another person, shall kill any of them or both of them in the act or immediately thereafter, or shall inflict upon them any serious physical injury, shall suffer the penalty of destierro. If he shall inflict upon them physical injuries of any other kind, he shall be exempt from punishment. These rules shall be applicable, under the same circumstances, to parents with respect to their daughters under 18 years of age, and their seducer, while the daughters are living with their parents. Any person who shall promote or facilitate the prostitution of his wife or daughter, or shall otherwise have consented to the infidelity of the other spouse shall not be entitled to the benefits of this article. Art. 248. Murder. Any person who, not falling within the provisions of Article 246 shall kill another, shall be guilty of murder and shall be punished by reclusion temporal in its maximum period to death, if committed with any of the following attendant circumstances. 1. With treachery, taking advantage of superior strength, with the aid of armed men, or employing means to weaken the defense or of means or persons to ensure or afford impunity. 2. In consideration of a price, reward, or promise. 3. By means of inundation, fire, poison, explosion, shipwreck, stranding of a vessel, derailment, or assault upon a streetcar or locomotive, fall of an airship, by means of motor vehicles, or with the use of any other means involving great waste and ruin. 4. On occasion of any of the calamities enumerated in the preceding paragraph, or of an earthquake, eruption of a volcano, destructive cyclone, epidemic or other public calamity. 5. With evident premeditation. 6. With cruelty, by deliberately and inhumanely augmenting the suffering of the victim, or outraging or scoffing at his person or corpse. As amended by R.A. No. 7659. Art. 249. Homicide. Any person who, not falling within the provisions of Article 246, shall kill another without the attendance of any of the circumstances enumerated in the next preceding article, shall be deemed guilty of homicide and be punished by reclusion temporal. Art. 250. Penalty for frustrated parricide, murder or homicide. The courts, in view of the facts of the case, may impose upon the person guilty of the frustrated crime of parricide, murder or homicide, defined and penalized in the preceding articles, a penalty lower by 1 degree than that which should be imposed under the provision of Article 50. The courts, considering the facts of the case, may likewise reduce by 1 degree the penalty which under Article 51 should be imposed for an attempt to commit any of such crimes. Art. 251. Death caused in a tumultuous affray. When, while several persons, not composing groups organized for the common purpose of assaulting and attacking each other reciprocally, quarrel and assault each other in a confused and tumultuous manner, and in the course of the affray someone is killed, and it cannot be ascertained who actually killed the deceased, but the person or persons who inflicted serious physical injuries can be identified, such person or persons shall be punished by prison mare. If it cannot be determined who inflicted the serious physical injuries on the deceased, the penalty of prison correctional in its medium and maximum periods shall be imposed upon all those who shall have used violence upon the person of the victim. Art. 252.